creating this equilibrium between the big brands and everybody else, so that everybody can get that exposure. And there is turbulence in the world. That obviously brings the reality that there has to be cybersecurity when it comes to government level.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Execweb Podcast. My name is Omair, and today I have with me Val, who is the founder and CEO of Execweb. So Val has over a decade of experience in investment banking, strategy consulting, and entrepreneurship. He's quite passionate about cybersecurity space and is connected with a strong network of Fortune 500 CISOs. So welcome to the podcast, Val. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Omair. Thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the great introductions.
No problem as well. Thank you for your time. So let's start with the basic, Val. So tell me about Execweb. What's the vision behind Execweb, and what exactly is the business problem that Execweb is solving within the cybersecurity space?
Absolutely. And let me take a minute to speak about my background, because obviously there is some context there, given I'm the founder. So as you mentioned, Omair, I started my career at Credit Suisse, the investment bank. I worked on a few $1 billion in M&A, IPO, and follow-on deals. The only reason this is relevant is because actually quite a few of those deals were on the cybersecurity side, and that's how I got introduced to this amazing industry. And I built relationships over a decade at Credit Suisse with very influential CISOs and security practitioners. So on the back end of these relationships, I built over a decade at Credit Suisse. I launched Execweb about almost 4 years ago now. I can't believe it's been 4 years, but it's been 4 years since I launched the company, with the mission to fix the broken and inefficient collaboration between cybersecurity vendors and security practitioners. And by broken and inefficient, the stats are actually mind-boggling, Omair. Less than 1% of all cold emails and LinkedIn emails going to CISOs and security practitioners get responded to by the actual security practitioners. It takes on average 5 months to get in front of a CISO from initial cold outreach, which is basically impossible. And it's just a very, very broken and inefficient model, while there is obviously a mutual dependency there between the security practitioners and the cybersecurity vendors. And also there is a structural industry problem, which is pure math essentially. There are about 3,500 cybersecurity vendors globally, and there are about 12 to 15,000 CISOs that actually matter and everybody's chasing. So obviously, as you can see, the math doesn't work on its own from the supply and the demand side of the industry. So the way we fix that is by facilitating very authentic and genuine 45-minute long introductory sales meetings between cybersecurity vendors and relevant to them security practitioners, and vice versa. And we have developed an internal Execweb Connect platform that does the matching and ensures that there is business intent on both sides, and actually facilitates those meetings and makes sure they're scheduled in their respective calendars.
Wow, that's so cool. I didn't know. It was so hard to get in front of the CISOs. Wow. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
yes.
yeah. So about just talking a bit more about the CISO. So what type of CISOs do you have on board? What industry are they in, and what's the demographics basically?
Great question, Mayor. So our network is composed of a few hundred ambassadors, the way we call them, and they represent companies with at least 1,000 employees. So you should think about Fortune 1,000, I would say. They're mainly concentrated across several industries: technology, healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, retail, and we have a few other ones, but those are the main ones, which should not come as a surprise. Those are the heavily regulated industries that demand cybersecurity offerings, and they have huge cybersecurity needs. And on the title side, most of them were top heavy, our network. Most of them are CISOs and director level and above security practitioners. All of them are decision makers and budget holders, of course.
Wow. And just a quick follow-up question: are they all within the United States, or you have some CISOs outside of the US as well?
So from the geographic standpoint, I would say currently our network is about 95% US based, and then about 5% EMEA. I would argue, which is basically the Middle East and Europe, and we're expanding aggressively in EMEA right now, but currently it's about 95% split between US and EMEA.
Gotcha. Right. I guess my next question would be like, if I'm a vendor and I want to book meetings with CISOs, so I get in touch with like, hey, well, I need to get in touch with CISOs, and this is the kind of CISOs I'm looking to contact. So, how quickly can you set up the meetings, and also tell us a bit more about the meetings, like how long they typically are, and how many people can join, etc.
Yeah, so maybe our network has been very efficient and effective in facilitating these meetings. We have, as you can imagine, the last 4 years we've done hundreds and hundreds of meetings. And what really differentiates us from our competitors in the industry is that we actually can facilitate very effectively. We have done it many times, 10 meetings within 30 days of onboarding a client. We have worked with hundreds of cybersecurity vendor clients, mainly from Israel, the US, UK, and Canada. And we have always delivered on our promise to get them in front of relevant to them cybersecurity practitioners who are looking for what they have to offer and have that true business intent, which is very tough to validate without going through an established network like ours. The way the meetings are structured, as I mentioned, they're 45 minutes long. We allow only 3 people from the vendor to join. They need to be the senior management, because this, as you can imagine, is a C-level discussion. CISOs with founders, CEOs, VPs of marketing, VPs of sales usually join. And we actually ask them to use our Execweb Connect platform, which we developed internally, which does the matching and ensures that there's business intent on both sides before the actual meeting happens.
That's pretty interesting. So you mentioned earlier, Val, that the traditional sales method, they like cold calling and emailing, it doesn't work anymore, right? And you also put some numbers in front of us, saying that they're not effective as they used to be. So why do you think these methods are not effective anymore? Because I know that a lot of people are still into cold emailing and cold calling, and the salespeople, they do it day in and day out. So what has changed? Why do you think these methods are they don't work anymore?
Yeah, great question, Omair. So I think there are many factors, as you can imagine. The main ones is just an industry specific aspect here, where CISOs are inundated with cold calls and cold emails. And actually we did a survey recently with our ambassadors, the way we call our security practitioners in our network, and on average they get 152 cold calls, emails, or LinkedIn emails per day, per day, which is incredible, right? So imagine being in their shoes. Obviously the only option you have is to delete everything and focus on your full-time job, which is demanding on its own. So also I think there has been a proliferation of sales people in the cybersecurity industry who are desperately trying to get in front of these CISOs, and they cold call them, cold email them. Obviously CISOs by definition are risk managers, and they know how to manage their own security in a sense, and they have also obviously many email filters, and they know how to make sure that they don't get interrupted by unwanted cold emails, which is why they never work, right? It's very tough to get cold calls to go through, and even if they do, sometimes some sales, and mainly usually junior sales professionals like SDRs, manage to get to the cell phone of CISOs and director level and above security practitioners, and that's always a bad idea. It frustrates them tremendously. I have heard horrible stories where they actually get called on a Sunday morning, their wives get called, their husbands get called. I mean, it's incredible how aggressive some salespeople are, and that, again, I have to emphasize, it's always a bad idea, because what happens actually, even if there was initial interest in the product, just the fact that you invaded their privacy in such a way puts you in a very bad position, and it blacklists you. Actually, Omair, it's very interesting. They have what they call a black book. It's not an actual book, but it's actually shared online, where they actually list vendors that they will never work with because of this very intrusive cold outreach approach. And this book is very heavily referenced within the CISO community, so you don't want to get on that book if you're a vendor, right? So be very careful from that standpoint. So those are the
vendors know about the black book? Sorry,
yes, I try to highlight it to as many as I can. Not all of them know about it, but I think all of them should know about it, right?
Yeah.
And that contributes obviously to to that difficult situation. And there are essentially only 3 effective ways to get in front of CISOs in today's age, and they have mentioned it to me many times, Omair. Those are the peer-to-peer referral. It's always number 1, shouldn't come as a surprise. If you and I are 2 CISOs and we're peers, and I tell you, please check XYZ, I'm using them, or I listen to them, I think they have a very innovative product, and I know you're looking for an API security solution, please take a look at them because you might like it. I think it's going to address your pain points. I know we spoke about them a month ago. Then you're going to most definitely take that meeting with that API security company, right, and startup. That's the most effective one. The issue with that is very tough to influence, right? You got to be in the mind share of these CISOs. They have to see you. They have to feel confident recommending you. And security practitioners tend, as every other professional, I would argue, are very careful in always putting their name on the line, right? So if they make a referral, they want to make sure it's a good one, especially when they do the referral to a peer of theirs. The second option is cybersecurity networks like ours, because they have the trust. Obviously, they're part of the network, so they trust us. We're going to get them in front of relevant to them companies. And the third and last one are very small regional events, but no more than 50 people. I'm not talking about RSA and Black Hat, the big ones. Right. Those have their place, but usually they're not as effective for cybersecurity startups. They're great for the established big brand names, but if startups want to get into the mindshare of CISOs and security practitioners, those small events up to 50 people are great, and they have to be the regional ones. Unfortunately, there the challenge is that it's very tough to get invited to those as a vendor, because as you can imagine, most of the attendees are actually CISOs, right? So but that's it in a nutshell. Anything else outside of that? Exactly. Anything outside of that, Omair, it's kind of a waste of time and money, I would say.
But I think this also, not just in the cybersecurity space, I can tell with experience that this does apply to other industries as well.
Sure.
I mean, these methods don't work anymore. I mean, especially, these cold email and cold emailing in general isn't working. So these email clients, they have become so strict, and they've updated their algorithms so much lately that it's really hard to land your emails in the inbox. So you might be sending a lot of great emails, but there are chances that nobody will ever see those emails because they never landed in their inbox. So it's a waste of time.
Absolutely, and I think it's even more true when it comes to Fortune 1000. Right?
Oh, yes.
For you and I, we're both running startups, obviously, so it's a little bit different. I get my emails myself, and just because obviously I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I get into the shoes of those founders trying to reach out to me to get me to buy their services. So I always reply with a non-interested. I'm not interested, right? But CISOs don't have that leverage, right? They first of all, they're inundated, and they're part of massive organizations that simply cannot allow them to have all the emails, cold emails incoming their way to land in their inbox. So to your point, most of them get shut down at time 0, but even if they land up at their inbox, they get deleted by the CISO themselves.
Right. Got it. Right. So that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about the new Execweb Marketplace. I know it's recently launched, and I'm really curious to know more about it. So what led you to create it, and why do you feel that there's a need for something like the Execweb Marketplace?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. As you mentioned, we launched Execweb Marketplace about a month ago, a very new initiative. I just noticed that there's so many cybersecurity startups, many of them are our clients, who have developed extremely innovative products on many different verticals, from data security to AI security to container security, you name it. We've got it, we've seen it, and nobody knows about it. And it's so amazing how the mindshare of the security practitioners in the Fortune 1000 is preoccupied with the big names, and there is nothing wrong with that. That's obviously inherently true for any industry. That's why the big brands have spent billions of dollars to be known, right? But I do think there is a value to a marketplace where a lot of security practitioners can come to filter and search relevant topics and needs they have based on what they're looking for in their cybersecurity stack, and find relevant to them vendors that they've never heard of. So they might want to contact them, through the marketplace, they might reach out to us and say, have you worked with this company before? What do you think about them? Or as I mentioned before, one of the 3 and most effective ways to ask their peers and say, John, have you seen this startup? Have you worked with this Mary? What do you think about it? Should I contact them? Because that's something I'm looking for right now for the next 6 months. So I think it's almost kind of creating this equilibrium between the big brands and everybody else, so that everybody can get that exposure, and then let's let capitalism work on its own and the best players prevail, right?
Right. Well, that's awesome. That sounds great. Just a quick question. So when a vendor lists their profile and services on the Execweb Marketplace, do the CISOs get notified, or like do they actively have to be searching for vendors?
Yeah, great question. So at this point, there needs to be an active search by our security practitioners, because sometimes what happens, Omair, is we get quite a few vendors listing their services on our marketplace, sometimes quite a few within a day. So we don't want to keep on alerting the CISOs. We're very cognizant of how busy they are, and the last thing we want is to overwhelm them. So that's why we have it currently in such a way so that they can always go internally through our system to the marketplace and filter and search based on keywords and find the vendors that are most relevant to them.
Right.
And then reach out and inquire to meet with them.
Right.
And
Also,
by the way, I have to mention something, sorry to interrupt, I have to mention something else which is very important, is that the marketplace, as you know, is free right now. We're offering that service for free. Anybody can use it, anybody can put their profile there. What we do not do there, which we do with our appointment setting and consulting services, that we do not pull our ambassadors and ask them to go to the marketplace. It's more a pure kind of at
organic.
will and organic from the ambassador standpoint, right? So if they're looking for it, they can go and check it out, but we're not asking them to do it. Now, if you become a client from the appointment setting service and consulting service we're offering, then obviously we actually make sure that you get in front of relevant to you security practitioners who have business intent and are interested in what you have to offer, being the vendor. But obviously there is a price for that.
Can you tell us more about the pricing, like without going into the specifics?
Yeah, of course. So so we have the 2 services currently we offer on here. The one is the appointment setting one, which is a very typical one. We have several competitors in that space. What we do there is essentially through our Execweb Connect platform, we offer packages of 10 meetings. So we get vendors to get onboarded, and once they get onboarded to our network, we make sure we match what they're offering to the business intent of our ambassadors. There is a 2-level of pre-qualification through the Execweb Connect platform. The first one is the data one, where they can let us know who they're targeting from a title standpoint, industry, number of employees. And then there is a second level of pre-qualification, where they can ask 3 pre-qualifying questions relevant to their specific cybersecurity vendor. And then based on the responses they get from our ambassadors, they can decide whether they want to meet them or not. If they approve the meeting, then obviously the other side has to approve it as well. There is always a double opt-in, which is why our meetings are very authentic and genuine, and why they're very productive. And then the meetings get scheduled. The vendor suggests 3 to 4 dates and times that are available. The ambassador picks a date and time that makes sense from the one suggested, and the meeting gets scheduled. So everything gets done within minutes, actually, through our Execweb Connect platform, although quite a few activities are happening. And what we have seen is that our vendor clients generate on average 2 to 3 POCs out of 10 meetings, which is a top 3 conversion rate for cybersecurity. And on the consulting engagement, it's a little bit different, where they pay us per month, a monthly fee for 6-month commitment. We allocate 15 meetings for these 6 months, but we also follow up on the behalf of our clients. We get very engaged, not only by the appointment setting, but we get engaged from the introductory sales meetings all the way to a POC, to a proof of concept, and we essentially become their conduit of information, and making sure that we can expedite as much as we can the sales cycle for our vendor clients, and create the trust with our ambassadors all the way to POC, as I said before. So it's not only the introductory sales meeting, but it's all the way a consulting engagement until we get to a POC. which is extremely helpful for many of our vendor clients
Right.
who have taken that consulting engagement.
Right. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that, Val. Really helpful. A quick comment on the Execweb Marketplace. You said it's free right now. Is it going to be free for life, or is it just free right
We
now?
don't know yet. So it will never be a focus for revenue generation for us. Eventually, what we want to do is potentially price it per month, so that we have not so much for us to make money, but for you to be able to list your profile and care enough so that you update it, keep it current, and make it relevant for our ambassadors. But it's gonna be something almost insignificant per month, within the maybe 10 to, I would say, $30 per month kind of fee, so that you can maintain the profile and just care enough so that you update it and make sure it's up to date, and you upload all the different videos and white papers you might have as a cybersecurity vendor, so that you can offer more transparency to our potential ambassadors who might be interested in meeting you.
Right.
But it's never meant to make huge money for us, being Execweb. For that, we have our appointment setting and consulting service, which thankfully we're doing pretty well with. So this is more of a non-for-profit, but market awareness kind of initiative. But I think eventually we're going to introduce that monthly fee, not for any other reason. Again, not so much for us to make money, but for the vendors to care enough to make sure that our ambassadors get updated profiles and keep them up to date.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess my only last question about the marketplace, and then we can, wind up, would be how many vendors are currently listed on the marketplace? Do you have a number, and how many do you expect to be listed on this platform, let's say in a year or 6 months?
Yeah, great question. So currently we have about 880 or so listed. We're obviously getting new listings every day. What we're hopeful to get listed as many as we can. There are about 3,500 globally. So it's a pretty small number when you think about it, Omair, right? That's the entire basically market of cybersecurity vendors. That includes seed stage, Series A, Series B, Series C, and obviously the heavy hitters and the big brand names like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, etc. Right? But we want to list as many as we can. We're expecting within the next 24 months to get to 1,500, 2,000. That will be a great success for us. We're not expecting obviously to have the entire market on our marketplace ever. Companies that have actually claimed their profiles, but we're hopeful to get in that 1,000 to 2,000 mark within the next 24 months, and I think that's realistic.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Val. I hope this marketplace turns out to be a great initiative, especially for the vendors to get in front of the CISOs. It sounds really exciting. So before I wrap up, I just have a couple of last questions from you, Val. So first, I'd like to hear your thoughts on a couple of key topics. First is the current global events, like there's a war happening, and there's an election coming up in the US next month. And then we are into the last quarter of the year as well. So what trends do you see in the cybersecurity industry going forward? Any advice for the vendors navigating these challenges?
That's a great question, and crazy times we're living in, right, Omair? Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, not only one war, but several wars going on. It's the Russia-Ukraine war, obviously now into second, third year, going to almost a third year now, which is incomprehensible when you think about it. Obviously, we have the Israel and Hamas war, which is turning more of a regional war now. And we have, as you said, the elections in only a month from now in the US, which obviously is a big topic of discussion and will have impact globally as well. So on the cybersecurity side, I've thought about this actually extensively, and I think there's several big issues that I think will become prevalent in the next, again, 12 to 24 months. So I think the war aspect, obviously there is turbulence in the war, there is a lot of military activity everywhere in combat zones. That obviously brings the reality that there has to be cybersecurity when it comes to government level. Cybersecurity, as we all know, and cyber attacks and cyber wars are actually one of the main ways countries forget about actually corporate hackers, but countries, how they attack each other, that has already been registered several times during the Ukraine-Russia war, where both countries actually attacked each other through cybersecurity. So more and more governments will be interested in partnering with vendors who can provide that security around the main infrastructure parameters, because those tend to be the ones that are usually attacked in the context of a government. Cybersecurity attacks, those obviously have heavily regulated kind of requirements, and you need to be federal registered if you're a cybersecurity startup to operate on the government side. So there are many requirements there, which makes it difficult for many cybersecurity vendors to offer their value, offer their product, and to be value add to governments. But those who can do that are in a very, very unique position, given just how turbulent the world is right now. Another aspect, obviously, is the election security concerns. Everybody is fully aware, obviously, of 4 years ago the election and the challenges from the Republican side, specifically Trump, whether he won it or didn't win it, whether the election was not rigged or not rigged. So there is a lot of that going on that has very real implications when it comes to cybersecurity, and vendors who can ensure that the voting machines operate the right way. That's part of cybersecurity, right? That the election software is secure, that the election campaigns are not actually hacked. And that happened in this campaign, as I'm sure you probably read about how Iranian hackers hacked both actually the Trump campaign and the Kamala Harris campaign, right? So they hacked both of them and released files and emails from both campaigns. I mean, this was a very real example of how cybersecurity vendors can help these political campaigns on either side of the political spectrum protect what they value most, which is their data, right? And another thing is obviously cyber insurances. I think will go up because of everything I highlighted previously. And another big trend that they see is the shift towards zero trust AI-powered security. AI obviously has become a huge topic of discussion, very prevalent not only across cybersecurity but across all industries, with the impressive and pretty unbelievable kind of overtake, I would say, of OpenAI, how we kind of reshuffled the entire AI industry, and now everybody's using AI in some shape or form. I would say most people are. And I think AI also on the cybersecurity side has become very, very interesting to many of our ambassadors. I speak to them every day, Omair, and they're very focused on how can they protect their Gen AI within their organizations, right? Their kind of language processing models, how they can make sure that those don't get hacked. But also even on the product development standpoint, for vendors, I think it's very important for them to rethink their approaches to zero trust frameworks, prioritize those, and have AI-driven solutions, right? Around addressing many things like the modern workplace, which has a lot of challenges now. Many of the industries have become fully remote, and that's a permanent change for many of these workers. So that zero trust environment has become very, very prevalent, and AI is a big component of that. So those are kind of the big, I would say, trends I think in the context of the geopolitical environment that we're all living in.
Also,
right,
I think, well, like just if we speak from the standpoint of these sales teams working with these cybersecurity vendors, I think this last quarter it is more important for them than ever to spend their budgets wisely, their marketing budgets wisely, right? Because you and I, we know that companies they do cut their marketing budgets, they do cut down their budgets for the sales team. So it's important to invest in the right areas when it comes to building their sales pipeline, doing lead generation, and we already talked about it. Like there are these conventional, traditional methods that these salespeople they continue to work on without getting any solid results. So and I think in context of that, platforms like Execweb, they offer solid value, and it's more important than ever to actually spend in the areas that actually guarantee you the right results, and not spend your budget in areas that don't have the right ROI for you. So yeah, I think that's also important, looking at this last quarter, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely, I would agree with that. And just to add to that, I think cybersecurity is very specific and unique example of go-to-market strategies, because let's say, if you're running a e-commerce brand, or if you're running a B2C consumer brand, I think it's still much easier to do the brand awareness, to do by going to Facebook, going to all these huge obviously platforms. Those don't work in the context of cybersecurity. First of all, it's B2B. Second of all, it's cybersecurity, right? So it's very high end, very, very tough to penetrate from a go-to-market standpoint and from a brand awareness standpoint. Not to mention that, I don't know if you knew that, but the top 20 cybersecurity companies, that includes CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Akamai, all the big brands that we all have heard of, they basically capture apparently around 25 to 30% of the $200 billion budgets that's spent on cybersecurity per year. Wow. So these companies are always in the mindshare of decision makers. So that's why it's very challenging. And to your point, the options for vendors and for startups, cybersecurity startups, to get that brand awareness needed for them to eventually potentially partner with one of these CISOs and security practitioners at Fortune 1000 is a huge undertaking. And the only way they can do it is through the three ways I mentioned previously, one of them being the cybersecurity executive networks.
Right. No, I agree, absolutely. I think the sales teams have to be smarter, and they need to adapt to the changing situation, and basically invest in the areas that actually work. Yeah, so things are changing really fast, and you have to adapt. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your time and sharing such valuable insights. The Execweb Marketplace sounds like a game changer for vendors and CISOs alike, I'm sure.
I hope so. That's always our goal. And thank you as well for the time. I really enjoyed this discussion, Omair. It was great. And
thank you so much, Val. So for the listeners, I can put in the link to the marketplace in the caption, so they can learn more about it. But thanks again for your time, Val, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Omair. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care.